Hello, my name is Aldrich Coleman, and I am part of Challenge 2016 at Georgia Tech. And today we're going to be doing some math problems. Um, we're going to start with A, which is going to be finding the derivative of f of g of h of a. So for this, we're going to have to use chain rule. This is what it looks like, f of g of h of a. And so what we're going to have to do is use chain rule. And the way we use chain rule is you use the derivative of the inside times derivative of the outside. So we're going to use the derivative of f of g of h of a times the derivative of g of h of a times the derivative of h of a, and that's the derivative of f of g of h of a. So for our second problem, we're going to have to be using the derivative to find an actual variable. So right now we're giving the equation e to the power of sine square root of x, and the variable they want us to plug in for x is pi squared. So okay, so now we're basically going to turn this into a derivative. So the way we're going to have to do it is that you multiply, or you get e sine square root of x, the original function, and then you multiply it by the exponent, the derivative of the exponent on top. You bring it down, so it's going to be e to sine square root of x times cosine square root of x. And then we're also going to have to find the derivative of square root of x and multiply it too. So it's going to be the derivative of square root of x is actually 1 over 2 times the square root of x. And okay, so actually the way we found the square root of x is that we multiplied, so the square root of x, or square root of x, the derivative, the square root of x actually looks like x to the 1/2. So for x to the 1/2, you're going to bring down 1/2, and then you multiply x, and then you subtract 1, or you subtract 1/2, 1 from 1/2, so you get negative 1/2. So it looks like this. And then once you kind of like clean it up a little bit, it's going to look like 1 over 2 square root of x. So now we multiply it all together, where it's e sine square root of x times cosine square root of x times 1 over 2 square root of x. That's what we got for the derivative. And now we're just going to plug in pi to the derivative. So it's actually going to be e sine square root of pi times cosine square root of pi times 1 over 2 square root of pi. So sine pi is actually, or sine square, or it's not actually square root of pi, it's square root pi squared, I'm sorry, square root pi squared, square root pi squared. So in this case, the square root and the square of the pi's actually cancel each other out. So then we're left with e sine pi times cosine pi times 1 over 2 pi. So now it's kind of like sine pi is equal to 0. So we're going to do e to 0, and then cosine pi is equal to negative 1, and then we have 1 over 2 pi. Okay. So e to the 0 is actually 1, so it's 1 times negative 1 times 1 over 2 pi. and then that's gonna, once you multiply 1 times -1, it's just -1, and then -1 times 1 over 2 pi is equal to -1 over 2 pi. And that's the final answer. So now we have the last problem, and the last problem is actually from the book that we have. So it's going to give us the function x squared plus xy plus y squared is equal to 7. So now for this, it's kind of complex. We're going to have to find the derivative of both sides. So we're going to start by finding the derivative of x squared, which is 2x, and then plus, and we're going to have to use product rule for x times y. So x times y is actually, so you're going to have to find the derivative of the first times the second, which is derivative of x times y plus derivative of y times x. So it'll actually, the derivative of x is actually 1, so it'll be 1 times the derivative, or 1 times y plus the derivative of y, which is going to be y prime times x. And then we're going to add it, and then at the end we're going to add the derivative of y squared, which is going to be 2y times y prime. And then that's all going to equal 0 because we have to find the derivative of both sides, and the derivative of 7 is 0. So it's going to look like this. Okay, so let's clean it up a little bit. It's going to be 2x plus y prime x plus 2y y prime equals 0. Okay, so now we're going to have to solve for y prime, the derivative of y. So we're going to bring 2x plus y over to the right side. So it's actually going to be the derivative of y times x plus 2y times the derivative of y is equal to 2x plus y. And then we're going to have to factor out the derivative of y. So it would be the derivative of y times x plus 2y is equal to 2x plus y. And then we're going to divide both sides by x plus 2y to get the derivative of y by itself. So it's going to be equal to 2x plus y over x plus 2y is equal to the derivative of y. Okay. So now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to plug in the x's we found at the beginning of the equation, which I actually forgot to do. So I'm going to do that right now. So we're supposed to find where the graph crosses the plane or it crosses 0 on the x-axis. So we're going to plug in 0 for all the x's at the beginning of the equation, which was x squared plus xy plus y squared is equal to 7. So we're going to have to plug in 0 for all the x's. So 0 squared plus 0 times y plus y squared is equal to 7. Okay, so now it's going to, the 0 squared cancels out because 0 times 0 is 0, and then 0y cancels out because 0 times anything is 0. So it's going to be y squared is equal to 7, so we square root the y. So it's going to be y is equal to the square root of 7, but since a square root, or you can square both a positive and a negative, it's going to be plus or minus the square root of 7 is equal to y. So now we're going to have to plug in what we found, the square root of 7, into the derivative of y equation. So the derivative of y is equal to 2x plus the derivative of, or let's start, so you have to do one at a time. So we're going to do the square root of 7 over 2x plus 2 times the square root of 7. So that's going to come out to Oh, and we put we set y equal to 0 because we're trying to find where it crosses the axis. So since, okay, so this is kind of weird, but the derivative, we're gonna have to multiply the derivative, or not the derivative, we're gonna have to multiply the bottom of the fraction times the other side, which is 0. So basically the bottom of the fraction disappears, so 0 is equal to 2x plus the square root of 7. So now we bring 7 to the other side, so negative square root of 7 is equal to 2x. So x is actually equal to negative square root of 7 over 2. And that's one equation, or one of the points on the graph. It's actually going to be negative 7, or square root of 7 over 2, as the x, and the y will be positive square root of 7. So now we have to find the other one, or the other point. So we're gonna have to do the same thing. So the derivative of y, will set it equal to 0. So 0 is equal to 2x minus the square root of 7, so it's a negative square root of 7, over 2x plus 2 times negative square root of 7. So that comes out, we get rid of the bottom again because it's multiplied by 0. So 0 is equal to 2x minus the square root of 7. And then basically bring the square root of 7 over to its side by itself. Square root of 7 is equal to 2x. And then square root of 7 is equal to, or square root of 7 over 2, I'm sorry. Square root of 7 over 2 is equal to x. Again. So now we plug that, or now that's the x. So now we just get the y and we plug it into the points. So square root of 7 over 2, and then since we use the negative square root of 7, it's going to be negative square root of 7 is the y. So here are the 2 points. Negative square root of 7 over 2 and 7, and square root of 7 over 2 and negative square root of 7. That's all. Thank you.